And we are live. Hello and welcome to another episode of the FreudenFreude weekly podcast, where we bring you content to help you grow and develop as a person and as a leader.
I'm Sandra Corona.
And I am Claudia. And
we are
coaches.
Yes!
We are coaches.
So I'm a coach for leaders, young professionals, and for the neurodiverse community.
I work with professionals, corporate leaders, as well as their teams in tech and beyond. So today's topic is cultivating self-awareness for big steps forward. And we were lucky that Nadej Welch, who's a dear co-coach of ours, did decide to join. Please join us, Nadej. Turn your camera on, unmute yourself, and we are so happy to have you. So Sandra, we decided on this topic maybe incentivized a little bit by New Year's. As we are recording this, or as we are live streaming this, it's about 2.5 weeks into the new year. And a lot of people do New Year's resolutions around this time of year. And frankly, we all know that by this time, 2-3 weeks in, some of these resolutions are already a little bit on rocky ground for some of us. We all have heard of the, for instance, gym memberships skyrocketing on January 3rd or 4th, and then some people hardly ever go. So we thought that self-reflection, awareness of what motivates you, and maybe even looking back and knowing a little bit more about yourself, because this is self-awareness, can help in making these things maybe more fleshed out and more manageable and maintainable in the long term. What do you think about this, Sandra? And then we let maybe Nadej chime in a bit.
Sure. Nadej, welcome. First, before I can continue, so thank you for being here. You know what? Yes, Claudia. I think one of the things that we were talking about is how we're going to show up, right? Our whole intention is for this year to show up as much as we can, right? But at the same time, when we show up and we present each other, we want to make sure that we are presenting ourselves wholeheartedly and completely, right? Mind, soul, heart, everything. And by doing that, you are able to set boundaries. You're able to move forward, know your steps. What are your next steps in life, et cetera, et cetera. So it helps you clarify what are your next steps, in other words. And I do agree with you. It's very important with the new to keep in mind, what are you doing right now that is keeping you from doing or keeping those new year resolutions, right? So I think it's very important for everybody to be here and do, a little bit of self-reflection, self-awareness. And we're going to invite Nadej in a couple of minutes so that she can tell us how is she doing with her New Year's resolutions.
Putting you on the spot now. I will actually need to excuse myself for 20 seconds. I will not last this whole hour without some coffee. I'll be right back. Go ahead.
Perfect. Okay, great. So this is now a time. Nadej, would you be so kind to introduce yourself? We've told people right now a little bit about you, but you have something about your business that people would like to hear about. Please, can you share?
So I'm an intercultural consultant. So I do help expats or global teams to work better with one another. So kind of bridge building, if you want. So the more we understand ourselves, the more we can understand others. So this comes back to self-awareness, as you said, Sandra. And like you and Claudia, I'm also an ICQ licensee, which means that I deliver global disc coaching and also growth. I just delivered a 3-hour workshop on growth, the human factor advantage, which was great. But in terms of self-awareness and New Year's, is interesting because I don't really put any pressure on myself with New Year resolution. So I know the direction I want to go. I know what I want to do for myself, but I've realized over time, self-awareness, that if I put it down on paper and I force myself to do it, like you said, half of the months after, I will drop it. So to avoid any pressure on myself, I write it down. I say, focus on this, focus on that, but never reach this goal by then, reach this goal by, because that would put too much pressure on myself. So I know the direction I'm heading, the aim, what I want to develop, but I will not put additional pressure on it. So that's my take on it. Maybe not so good, but it works.
And you bring up a very good point here that everybody is different. And to figure out how I am different from the next person, or maybe some recommendations that are being made in the personal development space or on social media, is just to recognize that I am different. And maybe my way of doing it is different from other people of doing it. And if, writing stuff down gives you too much pressure, then that's okay. And for my own personal self, I do not do New Year's resolution per se, but I always kind of take a little bit of time to very consciously at the end of the year, just take stock. And the New Year's resolutions are less formalized as very specific goals, but they are okay. I have checked in with myself. I have looked at the progress of my business, and this is my intention for the new year. This is, the where I stand now. So I personally do take a little bit this compelling event of the new year starting to remember to look back, and maybe to look back over a year's time frame, because I also think that time frames are important in all this. In my personal experience and the ones with my clients, I found that kind of the cognitively manageable and feelable time frame for doing things and planning things is only about a week. Everything beyond a week, or a little bit longer, it depends on the person, but it becomes abstract, doesn't it? Like, yes, you know that in 3 months you want to be there and things like that. But when it comes to taking action today and maybe feeling the repercussions of that action, very often, the time frame for true planning is about a week. Yes, we want to know the big directions. Yes, we want to know milestones along the way. But truly, the actionable time frame is not that long. Is that something that you have also experienced, Sandra? Maybe you go first. If your dogs have quieted down, you're still on mute.
Thank you. Yes, they're quiet for now. Okay, so yes, actually, you're absolutely right. And because every single day is changing, right? Every single day, there's something that's going to happen that could potentially change your plans for tomorrow. You have the best intention to do something, and then suddenly something happens in the evening, at noon or at night, that just completely sets off everything that you have planned for the next day. And if everything goes well, it happens during a week, you're perfect. And I'm going to give the example here. I was walking the dogs every single day, but I was walking every single dog, like one by one. Okay. So that would be 4 walks around the block. It was exhausting. Okay. Once you realize how exhausting it is, because not only am I fighting with trying to control them to say one by one, guys, something like that. It's exhausting. And so you start realizing, is this sustainable? Right? Is this something that I want to continue doing? Maybe not so much go around the block, maybe go here around the compound is more than enough, right? And so you start making it sustainable. You start planning. And like you said, I realized after that 1 week, this is too much. And I tried the following week. I said, maybe just try my luck. Maybe I'm feeling better about this. No, so now I'm lazy. Now I haven't walked them this week, but next week, because I'm thinking about it, this is my way of doing self-awareness, and I'm checking on myself. I start thinking about it, and I don't stop thinking about it until I say, oh my God, just do it, and I just do it. So that is a good thing. You made a really good point about the time frame that it takes for something to be sustainable, right? And so that you can keep it and plan for the next time. Thank you so much. And now, Nadesh.
Sorry about that. And I really think that you made a very good point here, that the self-awareness thing is an ongoing, constant kind of state of checking in with yourself, and of realizing, in your case, that you were exhausted, realizing that maybe you have a little bit of a bad consciousness if you don't walk the dogs the way that you want to, or you feel that they might like to be done. So it's not just about this, okay, now is the moment that I do self-reflection, now I sit down maybe with a notepad and I do this deep self-reflection, but it's this kind of awareness in the day-to-day as you live, of how does this impact your emotions, your concentration, and so on. Nadesh, what's your take on this?
So I have a few things. So what I can control, right? What is within the reach of myself. So like the tasks that I need to do, or what I want to do for myself. Usually, yeah, that's within the week. I can control it. I can do it. Of course, you always have curveballs. Something will go wrong, or maybe you hurt your foot and you cannot go to the gym, or you feel too sore, so you don't go, this type of thing. But then there's the second one, which is what is outside of your control. And this can be like, for example, I love to plan ahead. I'm a Virgo. I'm a sucker for that. I like to know what's going to happen. But I've learned, with the Portugal thing, that I cannot control that. Unfortunately, it's driven me crazy last year. And I looked back and I said, you know what? You can't control it. So just drop it. You have all the information there. Once you sign, you can go. But for now, there is nothing you can do. Don't beat yourself about it. Don't stress yourself, because it's an unnecessary stress, right? This is something that is completely out of my control. So I think these two things are quite important. What can you control yourself? So being self-aware of this is within my grasp, and what is outside of my control. So what do I need to keep an eye on, but not overwork myself about it, so that my mental health stays sane as well.
Yeah, very, very good point. Yeah, locus of control. Because I always jokingly say, life throws us enough curveballs. If you can't avoid it, enjoy it as much as possible. But stressing yourself out really is counterproductive. So, we touched on interesting points regarding self-awareness, and maybe letting go of things that are not really controllable or helpful to you. One bit that I feel is quite developed in many people that do more self-reflection, that are more self-aware, or that have been coached, by the way, is that they are much more in touch with their internal compass. They know their values, they are very clear about their preferences, and so on. And I would like to ask you if your experience gels with mine, that once you know your values and what keeps you going, what makes you tick, all these kind of resolutions, whether they be very formalized or not, but it keeps you going. It helps you maintain this momentum. Is that an aspect that you can relate to regarding self-awareness? Sandra, maybe go first. You're mute.
Well, some self-awareness. Oh my God, I completely lost my thought. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nadesha, while I recover, please.
That made me lose the train of thought as well. That's so funny. Sorry, Claudia, in 2 words, what was it about again? Sorry.
Just how if you're more self-reflected, you're more in touch with your values and what makes you tick, and it allows you then to keep your motivation high.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, because we're motivated by what we intrinsically want, right? So we can want to be healthy and fit, right? So I know that in order to touch this value, I need to go to the gym, pay attention to what I eat, and all this type of thing. So this keeps you going, right? So, however, again, there will be moments where, of course, this is going to fade. So let's say maybe for a month or two, you will go back into routine. You will not go to the gym, not pay attention to the food, and that's okay. I think the most important thing is to link it to our values, but also know that if you don't do it, it's okay. And that comes back to what we were saying, right? Not putting pressure on ourselves. We are self-aware. We know this is not good for us. We should do it differently. But we say, you know what? What the heck? Okay, it's just for a month. It's okay. Nothing's going to happen, right? I'll go back on the horse in a month's time. And that's all right. You know, life, as we said, is not, there's highs and lows, and we need to go through them in any way that works for us. So as long as we're self-aware, maybe the body needs rest, maybe your brain needs rest, we don't know. So it's kind of taking a step back. Yeah.
Right. And so that brings up this interplay also that self-acceptance has in all of that. Right. I couldn't agree more that, you need to know who you are, but you also need to kind of understand that you won't be able to do it all right now, all the time, and so on. It's just life, I think. Sandra, did you recover your train of thought?
Yes, I did. I think you know what? Let's go to the next question, please, because I am right now listening to the dogs. Let me mute.
Self-awareness right there. Yeah. So what other aspect, Nadesh, do you think comes into this title of self-awareness, self-reflection, which is kind of the gateway into the self-awareness as well, in terms of taking big steps forward? How come is it a kind of the fertile ground that these steps forward need to, can happen? Meaning, in what way is all of this kind of facilitating a move forward versus not having it? Do you have any thoughts about that?
That's an interesting thing, because if you are self-aware, in some way you are aware of your limitations. Now we have two types of people: those who want to grow, and they will say, you know what, I know my limitations, but I want to be more comfortable. I want to push my comfort zone because maybe where I'm working, people are different, or maybe my partner is different, so I need to make an effort. So being self-aware of that, you can grow. So you learn from what is happening. And then you have the second type of people who are self-aware and they say, you know what, I'm like that, just accept it. But then, and again, is a choice, right? You're self-aware. So you know that you will get on with certain people and not with others. And that's your choice. But are you not missing out on something great? Because you could learn to see things from a different perspective, You could learn to, with your partner, understand what their perspective is, and maybe compromise a little bit on things, or have a more harmonious relationship. So I think there are two things. Those who are really self-aware and want to grow, they want to learn more, they want to get out of their comfort zone, they don't want to be held back by their limiting beliefs, because knowing what your limiting beliefs are is also self-awareness. So you know what's holding you back, and you know that if you want to take that step forward, right? For example, people maybe with scarcity mindset, I need, I need, I need. Well, if you let go and you're like, okay, you know what, it's going to happen. If I put in the work, it's going to happen. I don't need to think that way. Then it works well. But this is a limiting belief that can come back to maybe the way people grew up, or whatever happened in their relationship with money. So I think this is really important to self-reflect. Where do I want to go? What is holding me back? How can I grow? So yeah, that's how I think.
Great points. Great points. It's really nice having you here today. So thank you for everything.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Yes, I am a little bit distracted, ladies. I have to take a call. So
Okay.
I'm so sorry. My husband needs
Go
something.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Life, that's life, people, and let's just navigate graciously as we can. Yeah, so you brought up some very valid points, Nadej. For me, I think it comes also just back about prioritization. Because as you self-reflected and as you go, you are then in a lot of cases, people are then going to allow themselves to focus on that one thing, or the few, the few essential things that are going to move them forward the most, instead of being sidetracked by maybe values or goals that are not truly authentically theirs. Right? It might be something that the family likes. It might be something that your social culture, requires of you. And those are distractions, but they also zap your energy. And I think the more you know about yourself and what it is that you truly want, and I'm not saying here at the detriment of others, but amongst choices that are given, if because you know yourself, you are able to hone in on the one thing that gives you in the end the biggest bang for the buck. Because I think the thing that then really matters to me, that I am passionate about, we are going to invest ourselves differently. And then, realizing that, yes, maybe this thing that I'm after is aligned with my internal values, is aligned with the overall direction that I would like to have for my life, that then is going to move forward faster. And I think that maybe is the main way that I think that self-reflection, self-awareness, self-knowledge, and so on is going to move you forward and in bigger ways maybe than just being constrained by superfluous or non truly serving ways of dispense your energy.
Thank you, Nadesh, for stepping in for a little while. So just for people that don't know, my father-in-law passed away last week, so I apologize. We're taking care of some paperwork, and he really needed to talk to me, so I'm back. Thank you. Yes, Claudia. If you have a question, I would like to be able to participate now.
Yeah, so the question that we were kind of contemplating is how does then this self-reflection and self-awareness bit make larger strides into your future better possible than maybe if you don't have that?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Look, I think that one of the best things that we have learned in coaching is that without curiosity, right, we're not able to understand ourselves. I think that once you go into curiosity mode, you're able to do a little bit of soul research, right? Do some finding, self-development, self-awareness, and what was the other one? Self-awareness and
Self-reflection, self-awareness.
self-reflections. Yes, developing yourself is very important. So in curiosity, you find yourself even more because you start wondering, well, why do I do this? Why do I think this way? Why do I feel this way? All of these things is part of curiosity. It's asking the right questions in order for you to grow as a human being. If we don't ask ourselves these questions as to where am I going, what is my intention, what am I trying to do, etc., you really will never find direction. Your North Star is going to be completed on the south, right? You won't be able to find yourself. So I think these two in coaching is the part that helps us make people a better version of themselves.
Right, right. So as a coach, Sandra, what are kind of the how-tos or tips that you might maybe offer a client of yours that has never really done self-reflection, never really isn't really all that self-aware? Because frankly, I have had occasions to be quite shocked how unaware certain people were of themselves, even things like their true preferences, or their motivations that brought them to where they are now. They are just not in touch. So if you had a client like that, what would be maybe a tip that you could give besides get a coach? Because
Right.
we do, since this is what we do as coaches very much, is to help people become more knowledgeable about who they are and be more structured about this process. But if you didn't have that opportunity, what would you say?
So for me, when I remember I had a client that would not understand why he felt lost. He had been living in Switzerland for 20 years now. And in those 20 years, he just didn't feel like he was fitting in yet. And I tried to take him into a path of his inner thoughts. Okay, his inner thoughts. So one of the things is like, okay, well, let's do some search. Let's try to go deep into this feeling that you have. Why don't you describe this feeling to me? How does it feel? Does it have a color? Does it have a smell? Where are you going, or where are you walking? What do you see? All of these things, incredibly, when you take a client down a path of research and discovery about where they're going, like their imagination is what they're really trying to tell you, if it makes sense. It's what comes up for them is what they're going to describe. And so as you take them through that path, they're little by little going to be coming up with these things as to what comes up when you think about this, or what do you believe is the reason that you found a deer in your path? Who is that? Who do you believe it is? And so on and so on. So for me, when I take them down a path of a story, of their own story that they're telling me, they start realizing many things. They start asking themselves incredible questions that I'm like, well, I couldn't come up with that question. So, but it speaks to them, and it makes them, and it helps them, I'm sorry, realize where probably that belief is coming from. Because really, as we know, as intercultural people, specialists, we know that it beliefs is just a belief, and it's our own limitation. So that's what I do. What do you think, Claudia? What do you do?
That's a very nice one to explore it kind of through a less well-trodden path, meaning just take at it and look, just move to a different perspective and look at the same thing through a different lens. And, that's very nice to, use more imagery and so on, because I think a lot of us are stuck in the repetitive kind of monologue that goes up in our heads. We here are probably all old enough to remember LPs, right?
Yeah.
The records, and they had a groove in them, and this needle would kind of follow the groove, unless it was a bad thing and it got scratched and then it would jump and things like that. But you stay stuck in your groove, and sometimes you just have to step out of that and look at it from a different perspective, and then be open to what bubbles up. Very interesting. What about you, Nadej?
So I like the aha moments, and like Sandra, and as you said very rightly, sometimes when you concentrate too much on the issue and on solving the issue, you think of solving it in the way that you know. But sometimes you can't. As you said very rightly, Sandra and Claudia, you need to take a different perspective. And sometimes it can be just changing rooms, it can be changing space, it can be looking at something else or talking about something else and then coming back to it. And this is really helpful. And I think people don't realize the power of that. I facilitated once a group, and they were really struggling with finding a solution to the point where they were actually arguing. And I thought, okay, everyone, let's stop. Let's take a break, go out on the balcony, because there was a huge balcony. And then they all went on the balcony knowing that they were arguing, right? And then they were on the balcony, they were having their coffee, and they were talking about the same issue, but in a very convivial way. And I said, guys, would you like me to take the flip chart out here? And they say, yes. And they had the most wonderful conversation and actually came up with a perfect solution for everyone. Why? Because they were not in an environment that was blocking the creativity and the flow of the discussion. So taking them out of the situation, yeah.
I love that. I love that. That's fantastic.
Very, very interesting. So, because space can hold an energy, and sometimes as a facilitator or coach or team coach, we are not necessarily able, through our presence, to really air it out, as we want to say. And sometimes you do need a break. Sometimes you need a change of scenery. And this change of scenery can also just be mental. I know that some coaches, and I have done it on occasion where it called for it, you maybe try to go into a little bit more of a meditative state with your client, when they're unable to, maybe they're stuck too much in their cognitive brain. Because some folks are, even when you ask them, how do you feel it in your body? How does it manifest? They're not able to get in touch with that. And that's fine. Everybody is different. And, then you just try to find other ways maybe to get these people to explore a little bit more. We talked earlier about that self-awareness is kind of a continual thing. It's a state rather than an action. And so I very often, at the end of a coaching session, I give my clients homework, and this is something that they do away from the coach. But it's just setting reminders, and sometimes even, with an alarm that goes off to check in with themselves throughout the days, at different parts throughout the days. And, whenever the alarm goes off or whenever they remind themselves on it, the question would then be, given this particular one context that was discussed, how do I really feel about it now? How is this particular action or behavior that I'm manifesting serving this? What does it tell me about myself? Now that I'm really talking with this person, how do I really feel? Meaning taking it out of maybe a discussion with a coach, or the fact that they're sitting alone at their desk at night trying to to self-reflect, but doing it in the moment, in the energy and the context of the moment, I think can be very, very important. And here again, sometimes we need to set these reminders not to forget, because we all are busy. We fall also into a routine, and it might for some not even be the most desirable thing to do at any moment in time, to self-reflect. And again, this does not need to take 10 minutes. This is a brief check-in. And if you can capture it, maybe just in 1 or 2 words on a scale or something like that, all the better for you. If you have an insight, write it down, maybe jot it down on your phone or whatever. So that is maybe another way to go about it. Do this kind of stuff in the moment, and not assuming certain things, or not after the fact, when you're just by yourself. That might be more the moment where you digest things and really try to understand better. Well, I felt that way, but where might it have really come from? Okay.
You know what? I'm sorry, I have to say something. I think that when you are in the right state, it does work what you're suggesting, just when you're in the right state, meaning that you're open, that you are communicating, that you are, again, curious, right? And that works. But usually the other half of the population, or at least, I don't know, me, I don't work that way. What I do is that I stay silent, because I understand that if I don't agree with something, it's probably because I haven't finished listening. So I have to listen to the entire conversation and say, you know what? Let me think about this. Let me reflect on this. I cannot, for the life of me, the majority of the times, absorb the information and then in that moment try to solve. I can't. That doesn't work with me. Again, it has to be when I am opened. But usually for me, as a neurodiverse person, it takes me some time to absorb the information, analyze it, and then I can come back and say, it doesn't take me long. I'm not saying like 2 days, or no. I'm saying like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, right? Where I can say, okay, why am I thinking this way? Why is this feeling this way? Is it just an idea? And then I say, oh, that's right. It was because something like this happened to me. Well, okay. And then I can come back to my husband or whoever I'm talking with and then say, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I think so.
Right, very good. 2 points here. The first one, yes. Sometimes this checking in the moment can just be a gathering of data points. I tried to allude to that earlier, that you will need to go back later and maybe digest it a little bit more and flesh it out and so on. But I think it's just if somebody does self-reflection Saturday evening, let's say, they might not remember all the different instances and things like that, where maybe it would have been good to get a specific check-in and data point, how they felt in that moment. Okay. And another thing before I give it to Nadej here is that self-awareness, like any other thing, doesn't necessarily come naturally. It's something that needs to be trained and tried again and again. It's not something that just because you flipped a switch, all of a sudden you're going to be self-aware. It doesn't necessarily work like that, right? Some people naturally are more in touch with themselves, and others it's like, never done that, no idea how to go about it. And I think just giving it best effort and keeping it top of mind that yes, I am an integral being with thoughts and feelings, and as I navigate this thing called life, maybe I should be a little bit more aware of how I really feel as I do this. And just this thought in and of itself is very interesting. If that's too big a thought, mind you, I think that being more principled, let's say, about a gratitude practice would even be helpful with that. It's a check-in, and instead of saying, how do I feel about this, which is the broader kind of stance, you would maybe ask yourself, what is good about the situation? What am I grateful about the situation? And, you know, if you're grateful, at least you get in touch more about, you know, what you like about it, what your preferences are is going to percolate up as you do this on a more regular basis, right? And so sometimes you need to do smaller steps versus the whole you know, let's start to be self-aware kind of thing. Right. Nadesh, you see how these lives go. We kind of jump around. Do you have anything to add at this moment?
I just want to come back with you were mentioning giving your clients homework. I think this is great, but I'm thinking with an example here. So, you know, when you hurt yourself and you go to the physiotherapist, right? And then the physiotherapist says, well, at home, you will need to do these 4 stretches in order to help your back to get better. What do you think is the percentage of people who are going to do these exercises?
I think it depends on the level of pain they're in.
Yes.
Which, because the pain is going to incentivize them. If they're really uncomfortable, I think the likelihood of them doing it is higher as if they're like really not all that uncomfortable. What's the answer?
So it's really interesting because I was preparing for a competition, and actually I had done something to my hips, which means that I couldn't squat, was the main things that I had to do, squatting or whatever that revolved me bending or even, you know. So I went to the physio and he said, you need to do these things. So after the first one, of course, I didn't do these things, right? I took my pain medication. I could see that through his manipulation, I could move a little bit better. So that was okay. And then I went back, he manipulated again, and he said, well, you know, by this time now, you should actually be able to do everything. So I would strongly suggest build that in your routine. When you wake up in the morning, just do that on your bed, and then you're good for the day. And I thought, that's not bad. Why not? When I wake up, I just do it. Because for me, the thought was, I need to think about something else on my plate, you know? And I thought, okay, if I do it straight in the morning, that's fine. So I think what is really important and what the guy understood is he had to find a way for me to bring it into my routine. And so I think once we understand the coachee, we can kind of see, okay, shall we do like a gratitude thing at the end of the day? Rewind what went well, what went less well, what am I grateful for? Or do we, some people, yes, very C-oriented people, you give them a checklist, a time when they need to do it, boom, put it on the calendar, they will do it. So whatever works for the coachee. But that was my experience. And a lot of my friends that go to physios is always the same as that. I'm not doing that. I'm going next week, he's going to fix me. I said, yeah, but to be fair, I learned, you know, I did this in the morning and it worked. Yeah.
But he worked you up because he also told you by this time
Yes,
you should
have.
So for you, it was like, what?
Yeah, competition,
okay,
right?
exactly. So a competitor telling her you're in competition with yourself. Oh yeah.
Right. And you brought up a good point. Yes, as coaches, we are constantly fine-tuning things every time we invent customized solutions for our clients. And, you know, we also get creative, you know, as we learn from the client, right? We might invent whole new tools, and that's kind of the fun of being a coach, at least for me personally. Yes, what you mentioned, Nadej, is I think it was popularized by James Clear in his book Atomic Habits. It is this whole concept of habit stacking. Right? It's like you already have a habit, like waking up. Hello. And then, you know, you try, instead of setting these reminders into the room or whatever, to do it and to stack it and link it Velcro it to something that you already habitually do. If you have to walk, let's say, from your desk to the water cooler, and you do this 5 times a day at work, then you might stack to this activity, this little break that you're taking at work, you might stack a self check-in. Right? It's like, okay, so whenever I do that as well. And, or I stack on top of, my getting dressed in the morning or whatever, doing these stretches. It's linking them to something else that you already habitually do. Sandra, do you do that as well? Habit stacking? Have you had experience with that?
Yeah. So one of the things when I started taking my ADD medication again, I would obviously with ADD, you don't remember to take them. So I thought, okay, what is the best way for me to remember to take this pill while doing what? Okay. And so I would tell my husband every morning, it's funny, but I also am of telling my husband, have you taken your medication before I get him breakfast? He tells me yes. And then as soon as I tell him that, I say, now I'm going to take mine. So while he goes and takes his, I've reminded him of his. So technically, I'm reminding myself of mine as well. So that is the best way of doing it.
Very nice that you remember your husband, but forget yours, very convenient. Yes.
But yeah, that's my best way of habit stacking. I'm sorry. And I think a lot of us do that, when you're saying, oh, since I'm on my way to the kitchen, I might as well just throw in some laundry, right? Because the laundry room for me is on my way to the kitchen. So I might as well just throw in this clothes and just wash, I don't know, 10 pieces of clothing and just get it over with for the rest of the day. Now, when is it going to get folded? I don't know. But at least I've done the first step. That's what yeah, there you go.
Right. And I think it bears mentioning that in all of these things, we should remain adaptable. We should remain flexible. If we become too dogmatic and rigid about certain things, like for instance, doing a habit every day, and we get really discouraged when we don't do it one day, or we have this devastating sense that our streak got broken and things like that, then it's going to be really hard the next day to go back into it. And is that something, maybe Nadej, that you feel people are struggling with often?
Yeah, I think that's a human thing, no? To struggle with that is not necessarily in our programming. As you said, if you manage to link it to something that you already do, like Sandra asking your husband if he took his medication and then, or waking up, I'm waking up anyway. So as if I'm still on the bed, it's going to take 2 minutes to do the stretches and then I can go on. So I think this is just something that we need to be conscious about, where do I want to go? What do I want to get out of this? And how can it help with my self-awareness and my development? And then based on that, we can figure out, okay, how am I going to build it into my day? And how am I going to make this a habit and a routine? And I think, yeah, we need to tap into, as you said, adapt to the coachee that you're going to have, come up with creative solutions that are going to resonate with them. So could be the competitive side, could be by now you would be already healed, you didn't do it, there you go. Or, just making sure that they understand the benefit of it and they will realize that doing this as a habit is going to make it much better for them in the long run and help them grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that part of self awareness is also knowing what sidetracks us. What is it that demotivates us? What is it that I have to watch out for that can take the wind out of my sails? I think that, and then, maybe taking action that maybe it happens less, or that I don't put myself into a particular situation. For instance, some people that are on a diet have to drive down this road that has all these fast food restaurants there, and it's really, really hard for them after a long day at work and maybe a stressful situation not to go in and get a little snack that might be not so good for them on the way home. And maybe then for them the self-awareness would be, this is really hard for me, and maybe I shouldn't drive there. Maybe I should take the other road, even though it's like a kilometer longer, to avoid this. If that's a detractor for you, then, by all means, that is part of self-knowledge as well. Having your plan Bs, right? If the main plan doesn't go, how can you make up for it? How can you, navigate this gracefully if the first option doesn't really work out? And, some of us need more security than others. Some of us are more creative than others. And I think that knowing yourself, knowing your personality traits, your preferences, your values, and all of that ultimately makes you more present in terms of your entire whole, not just the surface, and not just the part that reacts to external stimuli, not only the part that gets stuck in a routine that is very often thoughtless. And that's the whole part, the whole definition of a routine, of living these default ways of going through the day, but you become more present, more I really think that's the word. You show up differently because you bring with you this whole knowledge, this consciousness of, what you like, what you're after, what you don't like, and so on. I think the whole persona and the way that you show up reflects that. We have about 10 minutes. So Sandra, does that resonate with you at all, that you show up differently?
I do. And I was wondering, for example, one thing that I did today. I'm usually the kind of person that tries to enjoy the moment. I'm not sure if I'm present, but I try to enjoy the moment. And then that kind of brings me into that moment, right? So I can enjoy it even more and understand it, and so on and so on. So I was, for example, oh, thank you so much, Nadesh. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.
Bye.
Bye. So I was watching, it was evening and it was prayer time. And I was looking through the hospital, through the pharmacy, the window of the pharmacy of a hospital. And I saw three guys standing there, like just in threes, like in a triangle. And I was like, what are they doing? And then I was like, oh, they're praying, prayer time. And so I'm trying to absorb as many things as I can right now, and so that I can remember things about this country. Now I'm thinking, do I want to take a picture? Is that going to take away from me enjoying this moment, remembering it? And then I thought, no, I already took enough time to enjoy it, to absorb it. So then I took the picture because I wanted to share it on LinkedIn. And I kind of thought about influencers. And I'm thinking, do these people that spend all their time taking pictures, taking videos, and filming videos and all these kind of things, are they self-aware? So it made me think about what it is to be living in the moment. It made me think whether maybe they are living in the moment, or maybe they're living the moment that people tell them to live, right? Because I don't think that if you're so busy filming content, how much of that do you really enjoy? So I'm assuming that they just tell them, post here, do that, this and that. And I think that's why a lot of influencers have a lot of problems with being now self-aware of what's going on and what they're doing wrong and what they're saying and how they're portraying themselves when they go and talk on lives and stuff like that. Because you realize, you're like, how is this person that creates content so lack of self-awareness, right? So I'm trying my best to, when I'm seeing something, to put down the camera, put down cell phone and stuff like that, and enjoy what's going on around me, because I really want to absorb every single moment with my dogs, because I know that in 10 years from now, I know I'm going to be crying because thinking I should have spent more time with them. So that's what I'm doing.
Right, right. Well, I think
What about
influence,
you?
we feel, I mean, I think that you can tell kind of from influencers very often, whether or not they're out there presenting themselves full-heartedly, and truly standing behind them versus just telling something that might be that they think might
Catchy.
be viral or catchy and things like that, or they just parrot some other person's opinion. I think it comes across because I think for me, it would be the ninth circle of hell to always need to create content no matter what, and always living on social media, always also with the threat over their heads that they will be absolutely bashed by the anonymous online community and things like that. You have to have a very specific character, I think, to be able to do that. And kudos to them if they can, because there's content can be very enjoyable, and heads off. So I think it really depends, on how much you, or how predisposed you are even as a person, because like I said before, some of these things like self-reflection comes maybe more naturally to those people who have a growth mindset versus a very
Mm,
fixed mindset, that are expansive in their thinking, that have maybe in a more adventurous spirit and so on. It might be like that, but it's also but in a different way, maybe helpful to those that are really introverted and quiet, and prefer the safety of what they know without shaking it up too much and so on. It's for everybody. I think ultimately it's feeling better in your skin because you know your skin, right?
right.
You become more aware about the box that you live in, which is the box of our self-beliefs and our cultural constraints. And I think that the more we are also aware of what it is that is truly ours versus what it is in that whole fabric of our beliefs and things like that, that was imposed from the outside, that doesn't really reflect our own preference. Culture might tell you about certain things that you ought to be doing, or is
Mm,
culturally the norm or culturally desirable, and we might accept that, and yet our entire life we might struggle with it because we never really realized, oh, okay, so the reason I struggle with it is because this is a cultural norm, but my personal preference or my view on this is actually different, right? And
mhm,
then it's up to you what you do with it. Either you
right.
continue living with this discomfort, or you move somebody else somewhere else, or you just say, I don't care about the cultural norm, and if I'm like the black sheep now from now on, that's okay. I'm going to rebel.
Yeah.
So it really then is up to what you do with the self-awareness and how it impacts your decision making is everybody's responsibility and choice.
Right.
But I think the self-awareness makes our choices more our own. That's maybe the way that I
Yes.
that I would phrase it.
Love
What
that. Love that. Um, Self-awareness makes choices our own. I love that. And I think we're going to end with that. I don't think I have anything else to end. It's
perfect,
wonderful.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Nadesh, for joining today. Everybody, if you have listened this far, I hope that you found some useful content in here. We go very free-form, and we hope that you enjoyed it. If you do, please subscribe to the channel and otherwise engage with our content. Give us a like or, put a comment down below. We would really appreciate it. I know Sandra is busy for the moment, but if you're in need of a coach, you can contact me. My contact information and Sandra's is attached to this video, so feel free to reach out anytime. Otherwise, we are going to be back with more content next week.
Right. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye, Claudia. Nice to see you.
Bye-bye.